Okay, guys, so today we're going to be talking about Group 1 of our ACTP module trainings. Group 1 is team building and retention. It's going to be going over building a team, retaining talent, and then we'll talk about a 5 knowledge framework as well today and just some other resources and things that you're going to learn about TLS today. The point of building a team, it's like, what does this look like in training? It's supposed to be able to provide strategies for recruiting top students to become tutors, addressing interviewing, the hiring process, and the entire onboarding sequence. So we'll talk about all that fun stuff today. Why do we talk about this stuff? It's because effective team building is essential for building trust among tutors and staff, increases productivity, and fosters more engaged employees as well. Team building begins on the first day tutors are recruited and hired. The recruitment and hiring process is the first step to building a successful team, building trust between students and faculty, and demonstrating an investment in people that results in long term sustained success. And as we know here at TLS, we're all about fostering independence and gaining lifelong learning and success for our clients. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next slide. Okay. For the 5 knowledge framework that we're talking about, these are the 5 points that we're going to go over. It's just a topic designed to provide an overall training framework for you guys. So you're just well aware. It helps the trainer, which is me, and the tutor understand how each part of training fits into a unified whole. The 5 points of the 5 knowledge framework that we'll go over today are: 1 is student knowledge, 2 is program knowledge, 3 is college knowledge, 4 is student knowledge, and 5 is tutoring knowledge. I'm going to go in the next few slides. We'll just go a little in depth of more about all the differences of these things. But it's basically just categorizing 5 types of knowledge that tutors must have to maximize their effectiveness as tutors. It's just a great framework to use when you're thinking about your job and like how you work as a tutor. Okay, so continuing on. So we'll start with subject knowledge. Subject knowledge is talking about like when you recruit tutors and you go through your interview and hiring process, the candidate that is applying to become a tutor has transcripts demonstrating their knowledge of subjects previously taken, overall GPA as a student, and then referral and letters of recommendations from instructors, and possibly even previous experience as a tutor. So it's like I said, faculty recommendations tell us where knowledge gaps exist. Everyone has a knowledge gap, so don't freak out if you have one. And then ongoing discipline specific trainings help to close these gaps, which we provide here at TLS for you guys. And then we of course, go through your recommendations from professors, your GPA, which is TLS has a minimum GPA of, I believe, a 3.0 for any employees that are getting hired. And then, of course, you have training to go along with TLS. And then for program knowledge, this one's about has to do with tutors learning all that the center does in order to make internal referrals and truly imbibe the values and goals. So it's just strong grasp of the services that we offer here and the philosophy of the learning center. So, I don't know why it does that. Okay, and then there's college knowledge, which is a big basis of um the ability to make referrals to other campus services. As we know, TLS offers a bunch of different services here on campus. It's always important as an employee of TLS that you can refer others to any services that they have on campus, like our um, counseling center is a big one that it's good for you to know about, but it's just important to know about your college and things that you can offer to your clients. Okay, and then we have student knowledge, which is just another factor that makes tutoring and other forms of learning assistance successful, is peer-to-peer interaction. It's an understanding of the attitudes and academic behaviors that are needed to succeed in college. You have to be able to interact with your peers in order to be successful, not just in school and in your classes, but also outside when you go into the real world. If you can't communicate with your coworkers or the people around you, you're really not going to be successful. And then there's tutoring knowledge, which is just it's the last pillar of the 5 knowledge framework, and it's arguably the most important because it requires learning the tools of the trade to become a successful tutor. Some of these topics from the topics that are listed below are some of the ones from the other groups through in the ACTP training module that we'll cover, which is group facilitations, collaborative learning, open-ended questions, basic learning theory, and then effective communication, of course. So that's the rundown basis of what the five knowledge framework is. Okay, so now we'll go into more TLS steps. So you have our TLS position titles, which we have our peer tutors who work in the tutoring commons in the library. They provide one-on-one and they have drop-in appointments, and you can only schedule an appointment with a tutor if you're in that class, and that class has a tutor. And then we have our SI leaders who are more specified to one class, and they work hand in hand with the professor for that one class. Our writing consultants who work in the writing center, they work on any grammar related assignment that you would need help with. And then we have our program and training leads, which they're just a level up just to help out our tutors and our SIs if they need help with more other things. And then we have our graduate assistants who work in our MLC. They work with a variety of students as well. And then our peer assistants are kind of like a tutor. Their job is just a little bit more, a little bit different from there. And then, of course, our office assistants who run the desk at each of our centers and help with scheduling and checking people in and out of their appointments. Okay, our team culture. So we'll start at the bottom and talk about the foundation. It's just cultural exchange. Like TLS is a really big variety of people that we work with, different backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses. It's just important to remember your exchange with different people from different backgrounds and cultures. A foundational workplace experience. Want to have a positive workplace experience, any transitional support that students or employees would need. And then our second tier is approachability. You need to be approachable, camaraderie. And then on top, we have our servant leadership and lifelong learning. Like I've said, I think already that we're here to foster independence and just create lifelong learning for our clients through teaching them what you're learning as an employee here at TLS. Okay, recruitment and how it works. So, when does recruitment begin? It begins at the beginning of the semester, or it could happen at the end of the semester. Sometimes we may have people come in throughout the semester. It just depends, but mainly it's at the beginning and the end. It's just the way cycle works with a job like this. And then we have our how. So, how can you get a job here at TLS? So, you have your peer recommendations where let's say you have an SI for a class who's graduating and they're like, they need a new employee to take that position. That's when your peer, that SI, can recommend another student in their class that they think would be able to teach their SI or take over the SI sessions. And then there's Handshake, which Handshake is an app we use here at TMUCC for different jobs. It's a way for you to go on and apply for jobs and look at different jobs that are on campus. And that's another way that you can. And then we have our career fair on campus. That's just you go and you talk and you give your resume, and whoever's there will take your resume, and it's a great opportunity just for you to get to meet face to face, really. And then you have recommended by a professor. When in doubt, your professors can recommend you for this job because they know their students pretty well, and they're going to recommend the ones they think would be capable of doing a job of tutoring and SIing their classes. Okay, methods of selecting candidates. So, what we look at here at TLS in order to select people who should be hired is one, your resume that you give. Self explanatory, you have to have a resume for a big job in the real world too. So, same thing here. Your recommendations that you get from your professors, your GPA, and then your grade in the class that you will be tutoring or supplementally instructing for, because that matters as well. This is effective because you all have a special skill set and personality as a TLS employee, and we can use these items to learn more about you and see if you are fit for the job. Okay, and then after you interview and you're ready to get the job, so we're going to talk about the next steps. So now, how do we hire you? So one, the coordinators and the assistant director will discuss their thoughts after your interview. Just talk about how your interview went, what they think about you. You're not in this portion, but this is what happens if you were wondering. And then two, you will then be notified once they are ready whether you received the job or not, and that'll be through via email through Outlook. So yeah. Okay. How long does it take to onboard an employee through HR and other campus processes? Fun fact, it's really just varies. It's different for everybody. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it takes longer. It just depends on when your I-9 gets processed, when we can start your training. So, yeah, I-9 and HR. So just make sure your I-9 is turned in within 3 days of your start date. This thing's super important so you can start the job. It's mandatory to stay eligible for employment. And if you have any questions, you can contact Maria Pedigo with any of your questions at the phone number, or she's located on campus in NRC Suite 242, which is in the second building on the right at the main entrance. And it's all a part of your onboarding process. So you can't skip out on doing this. You have to do it no matter what to get your job. Okay. So you get hired. You're in your first few weeks of working for TLS. So we're going to talk about what that is. So you have your initial training. So at the beginning of every semester, we have pre-semester training. It's usually the first 2 days before class. It's completed within the first or second week of hiring. Um, Everybody has to attend pre-semester training if they can't. Of course, if there's issues, we'll still make it work. If you get hired throughout the semester, we still try to get it done within the first or second week of you being hiring because of you getting hired, because it's super important that you're starting your training, and you're knowing what to do, and getting started in a good place. And then your first day, usually you go over navigating Workday and how that works, which is um, the app that we use to track our hours. So you know how to clock your hours so you're getting paid, and student tracking softwares like that. We like Track Cloud, we'd go over that on your first day as well. So you're aware of where to find your schedule and how that works. And we would talk about train tracks, where you find those, which is our training system that we have to do through TAMU, which they make all their employees do it. And then you make sure your schedule is updated and correct, which you could talk. Yeah, if you have issues with that, you can talk to your coordinator about that. You figure out your availability for training, which you will work hand in hand with the trainers. They usually send out something called a win to me, and you'll give them all your schedule, and they will block you off on Track Cloud so you know exactly when your training is. And then getting used to just a new work setting like this. It's a very different atmosphere than some. It's just important to make sure you're getting used to that. And then in your first 2 weeks is you'll start preparing for appointments. You may get appointments within the first few days, but you just start preparing and getting through and getting comfortable with the process of that. You'll attend your first in semester training within your first 2 weeks of work. It's usually the second week that that happens. That way, you're also getting to meet your coworkers and your peers and getting familiar with the people around you. And then, like it says in the next point, getting acquainted with your coworkers. Okay, so our mission statement to make more engaging centers for our employees and students is the Office of Student Success is dedicated to transforming students' lives by providing accessible, high quality, comprehensive services, opportunities, and support to assist all students in their education journey. When in doubt, we're here to help the students out. You're a resource for them. So it's just important to keep that in mind, as well as we're here to make you successful, um, by allowing you this job to help you in your future endeavors when you graduate college. Okay, professional development goals. So some of those that we have would be professional communication, establishing boundaries, with your clients as well as coworkers, active listening because that's a super important part of sessions with your clients, a growth mindset, conflict resolution. You're going to have conflicts with coworkers and students probably, but um, that's why we go over conflict resolution. So you have great ways to help yourself solve those. Question asking strategies, we talk about leading questions, probing questions, open ended and close ended questions. It's all important stuff for you to know. Working with special populations, that's super important, especially with the wide variety of students we have here on campus and that come to TLS and work with us. Working with faculty and staff, you have to know how to work with them in order to be successful at your job. And then in challenging job situations, because that's another topic that you have to know about. Okay, training. So pre-semester training takes place at the beginning of the semester. It's usually the Thursday and Friday before the semester starts. In-semester training takes place throughout the semester, which the trainers make up a calendar for that and will tell you and notify you every week that you have training, weeks that you don't have training. If you have makeup training to complete, they do all the notifying for that. There's no training during the summer. It's just how it works. ACTP training is ongoing throughout the academic year. So you have 2 full semesters to complete all the ACTP training that you will need. You have 4 pre-semester training topics that we cover on that Thursday and Friday before the semester starts. And then throughout the semester, we break up the last 6 topics over the semester. And then you have to complete 90% of the ACTP topics in order to get certified for ACTP. Okay, training continued. So training will reach over the current academic school year. And then each semester, you are required to get 10 hours of training and complete all ACTP topics for the semester. Training is facilitated by the TLS trainers over the semester. And you will either do training online via Canvas if you have to make it up, or in person, depending on your scheduling and all of that fun stuff. Okay, core principles of TLS. So we have our policies, our procedures, and our professional standards, which we go over at pre-semester training. So you're well aware of all of that stuff. Our effective communication, which is super important to just know how to communicate with others. Academic anxiety, we all have anxiety out there somehow, and a lot of it can be academically focused. And then tutoring session best practices, of course, and then our TLS expectations, which are important for you to know as an employee of TLS. Okay, campus resources for students. So we have our Academic Advising Transition Center. When in doubt, you have to visit academic advising to help with your schedule. There's people there and resources there for that. Our University Counseling Center, you just have to remember in this job, your client may look to you as somebody they can talk to, which is great, they can, but you're also not a therapist. So just remember you can always refer them to the counseling center. The University Health Center, self explanatory if they need something that concerns something with health, you can refer them to our University Health Center. We have academic coaching. They're just there as another support for students. The Dean of Students, of course, if someone needs to talk to the Dean of a college or the Dean of Students if something's going on. And then the Title IX office, of course, which is helpful with any Title IX issues that you have. Okay, TLS leadership. So our leadership here at TLS starts with Dr. Leslie Mills. She's our Associate Vice President of Student Success currently. And then we have Dr. Rita Sperry. She's our Director of College Readiness and Academic Support. And then our Assistant Director is Andres Garcia, and he works for Tutoring and Learning Services. Then we have Sarah Pons, our Writing Center Coordinator. And currently, Jess Halls-Layden was our academic support coordinator, but she is no longer at the moment. So that position is just open at the moment. Okay, what is most helpful for student tutors to share with tutees in terms of the tutor's own experience as a college student? Some of those could be like the study strategies and habits that we go over with you guys here at TLS. Through your training, you learn so many different study strategies and habits. For example, like we talk about time management, anything that you learn in your training so you can pass on to your students. There's also overcoming academic challenges like getting over procrastination or getting over just cramming stuff in instead of actually sitting there and trying to learn things. And then there's navigating college life, like how to use campus resources, which a few slides back we talked about, as well as professional communication, how to professionally communicate with your coworkers, faculty, staff, other students. And then mindset and motivation, which is just how to stay motivated, how to have a growth mindset, stress management, and self care. And like I said, we talk about all of these topics throughout our semester training for you guys. And it's just great resources for you. And anything, like I said, anything that you learn through your trainings, you can easily pass on to your students and your clients. So it's just important to keep that in mind. So, okay, topics for you to keep in mind. So, those would be question asking strategies, like I mentioned earlier, and we have a whole presentation over this that you guys train with. Collaborative learning techniques, belonging and connecting, tutoring services and roles in a learning center, tutor recognition and leadership opportunities, and then tutoring and learning center expectations, which throughout ACTP, we will talk about all these topics again, and then in other training we do as well. So you can keep them in mind now, but we will be covering them later on in our other groups. So